You went silent. You walked away. You cut off all contact and thought finally you were free. But then, out of nowhere, they came back. A text message at midnight. A vague just checking in. A shared photo from the past. An emotional apology paired with those familiar remorseful eyes. And you find yourself wondering, have they really changed? Do they truly want to come back? But be cautious, what you're facing is not repentance. It's a psychological strategy. The narcissist doesn't return out of love. They return because they've lost control, because their pride was wounded, because you're no longer in the role they assigned you. And what they do next is a test of your clarity. In this video, we'll uncover 8 dark truths, the deeper, colder reasons why a narcissist suddenly comes back after you've gone no contact. This isn't just information, it's a weapon to protect yourself from the dangerous cycle of manipulation. If you're in that uncertain phase, caught between the longing to be loved and the fear of being hurt again, this video is for you. And don't forget to hit subscribe, because awareness is the first step in breaking free from narcissistic trauma. Reason 1. Wounded pride. For a narcissist, a breakup is never an ending, it's a defeat. Not because they loved you deeply, but because they cannot stand the feeling of losing. When you are the one who walks away, who sets boundaries, and worse, cuts off all contact, you strike a blow directly at their fragile and highly sensitive ego. A narcissist doesn't see a relationship through the lens of emotion, they see it as a stage where they are the lead role. And when you abruptly step off that stage, they're left without an audience, without someone to validate their allure, their power, their irresistible charm. What they lose isn't you, it's their starring role in the story they scripted. Being abandoned is more than losing a partner, it's an insult. A direct wound to their pride, which they must conceal at all costs. That's why they come back, not because they realize their mistake, but because they need to even the score. They need you to talk to them again, open your heart again, bend again, so they can tell themselves, I'm still in control. During hovering, their tactic of re-engagement after silence, every move they make serves one purpose, to restore their self-image, not the relationship. They don't want connection, they want victory. And once you're pulled back into the cycle, no healing will take place, because from the beginning, you were only ever a witness to their wounded pride trying to rise from the ashes. The bitter truth is, if you don't see it for what it is, you may believe you've been chosen again, when in fact, you're only a pawn in a battle for pride that they simply refuse to lose. Reason 2. Fear of being replaced. To a narcissist, you are not just a partner, you are a mirror. A reflection of their desirability, their emotional power, their self-worth. When you walk away, and especially when you begin to thrive without them, it's not just a loss. It's a threat to the carefully constructed identity they depend on. The narcissist doesn't truly love you as a person. They love the role you played, the one who belonged to them, who responded to them, who remained under their emotional orbit. But once you start stepping out of that role, when you begin laughing more, healing more, living more intentionally, they experience something even more threatening than pain, the possibility of being replaced. Nothing terrifies a narcissist more than the idea that you might find someone else, someone who sees your worth without needing to manipulate you. That vision collapses the fragile hierarchy they've built. It shakes the foundation of their identity, which is based on being irreplaceable, being desired, being in control. So they come back. Not because they realize how much you meant to them, but because they can't bear the image of you happy with someone else. They'll reach out with texts, phone calls, nostalgia, even false emergencies, anything to draw your attention back. Their goal isn't to connect, it's to interrupt, to sabotage the progress you've made. Here's the painful but essential truth. A narcissist's longing isn't rooted in love, it's rooted in possession. They're not mourning the loss of you, they're mourning the loss of their power over you. And when they sense that you're slipping out of their emotional grip, they will do everything in their playbook to reel you back, in not to move forward with you, but to pull you back to the role they assigned you from the start. Reason 3. The feeling of losing control. In any relationship with a narcissist, control isn't just a foundation, it's the endgame. They don't love you in the way you think of love. They love the feeling of manipulating your emotions, your actions, your reactions. They love knowing that a single message can keep you awake at night. They love watching you analyze their words, trying to understand them, trying to please them even in silence. But when you stop reacting, when you walk away, go silent, set boundaries, and protect your emotions, that's when they feel their power slipping. A narcissist cannot tolerate being emotionally irrelevant. In psychology, losing control over a former emotional supply is one of the strongest triggers that compels them to come back. Not because they regret, not because they love you, but because they need to test, do I still have influence? Can I still manipulate? It's not about reconnecting, it's about power checking. They return not to apologize, but to observe. They throw bait a message, a small gesture, a vague act of kindness to see if you respond. If you reply, they breathe easy, you're still within range. If you don't, they escalate, showing up unexpectedly, messaging more frequently, resorting to guilt tactics. To a narcissist, nothing is more threatening than your emotional autonomy. Because when you're emotionally independent, you're no longer a source they can't extract anything from you. In their mind, that's the worst kind of loss. Understanding, this is the beginning of your freedom. Because you'll finally see that their return isn't a second chance. It's test to see if you've really broken free. Reason 4. They couldn't find a new source, so they came back to you. Have you ever wondered why, even after their silence, even when you've tried to move on, they suddenly reappear? It's not because they still love you, it's because they haven't found anyone to replace you as their emotional supply. For narcissists, every relationship is a source of emotional fuel, your reactions, your forgiveness, your tolerance. They need someone who's easy to manipulate to keep their fragile ego intact. And when they can't find a new partner who's as responsive or as moldable, they return to the one who once played that role. Their comeback is never loud, it's calculated. A gentle message, a vague check-in, a quiet offer to reconnect. It sounds caring, but it's not. It's a test. A way to see if your emotions are still accessible. If you respond, they know the door is still open. They'll begin using your reaction as fuel to reassert their power. But if you stay silent, they don't stop. They escalate, showing up in places you frequent, sending old pictures or stirring up memories, all to see if you're still vulnerable. What's essential to understand is this: they're not coming back because you're unique or irreplaceable to them as a person. They're coming back because you're still usable. And their displays of concern aren't love, they're tactics of control, dressed up in emotional packaging. Reason 5. The intolerable loneliness, why they come back. You might think they return because they can't live without you, that missing you is proof of their love. In reality, it's nothing more than a desperate attempt to escape the void inside themselves, not because of you, but because of their inability to be alone. Narcissists are rarely trained to sit with solitude. Many grow up in emotionally unstable environments where love is equated with submission or validation. They learn early on that having someone equals self-worth, not self-love. When you're around, they have a supply. When you leave, they face a terrifying truth. Without someone to manipulate, without someone to reflect their carefully crafted image, they are forced to confront their inner emptiness, and they can't handle it. So they come back, not with sensitivity or sincerity, but with a mission to be seen. They don't need your open heart, they just need your eyes on them. They show up not to reconnect, but to reassure themselves, I still matter. I still have influence. Look closely, this is psychological attachment, not affection. When you walk away, their world doesn't feel quiet, it feels uninhabited. And rather than face that silence, they use your presence to fill it. When they return, they'll do it subtly but strategically. A well-timed story post, a message sent when you're likely awake, a song from your past. The point isn't to make you remember them, it's to stop them from forgetting themselves. What's most dangerous is your empathy. You might mistake their loneliness for sincerity. You might think you're the only one who truly understands them. That's when the trap is reset, not out of love but guilt. You reopen the door not for healing, but for the obligation of rescuing someone you once loved. Reason 6. Their control is threatened, and they can't stand that. To a narcissist, your departure is not the end of the relationship, it's defiance. And to them, defiance is a threat. Why? Because the foundation of the relationship was never built on love, but on control. When you go silent, when you stop reacting, when you start setting boundaries, you're doing the worst thing imaginable in their eyes, taking back your autonomy. Control is the fuel that sustains a narcissist's ego. They don't need you to love them, but they need you to fear losing them. They don't need your admiration, but they need your constant effort to please them. When they lose emotional leverage over you, it's not just disappointing, it's dethroning. And in a narcissist's mind, that is unacceptable. So they return not to reconnect, but to re-establish the old order, the order where you chase, and they are the center. They won't return with a sincere apology, they'll return with sweet words. subtle suggestions that you've overreacted, and carefully crafted guilt designed to make you question yourself. The danger is, if you were once controlled, you might still react by reflex. You hear them speak, and you feel like you've been too harsh. You begin to doubt your decision, and in that moment of hesitation, they regain the power they crave. But remember, someone who truly loves you respects your boundaries. Someone who manipulates you will break them wrapped in a ribbon of concern. Reason 7. They can't stand being invisible. Nothing unsettles a narcissist more than being forgotten. Your silence isn't just rejection, it's a direct blow to their fragile yet grandiose ego. In their internal world, they are always the center of attention. So when you disappear from the stage without warning, without reaction, without chasing, they feel erased from a script where they were supposed to be the star. To them, invisibility is a punishment far more brutal than criticism or confrontation. Because in conflict, at least they still have your attention. But when you no longer care, not even enough to be angry, they're struck with a terrifying realization. They've lost their hold on you. That's when they panic and come back. They start sending out subtle signals to remind you they still exist, liking an old photo, sharing a nostalgic song, or conveniently running into you at places you frequent. Every move is calculated to achieve one thing: to make sure you remember they're still around, and that you haven't completely escaped their orbit. In therapeutic terms, this is a form of obsessive reassertion and inability to accept that they no longer influence your world. It's not about love, it's an identity crisis. Because if they can't make you feel sad, angry, confused, or anything at all, they feel like they've ceased to exist. And so they return not to reconnect, but to confirm that they still hold power over your emotions. Once again, this is manipulation wrapped in nostalgia and emotional bait. Reason 8. They want to keep you as a backup option. One of the most unsettling traits of narcissists is that they rarely ever truly let anyone go. Even when they're in a new relationship or appear to have moved on, they still try to keep you in a state of emotional limbo, not quite an ex, but definitely not a current partner either. Because to them, you're not a person, you're a contingency plan. They may have entered a new relationship, but if it falters or doesn't go as planned, they want to ensure you're still available. They'll check in with vague messages, bring up harmless stories, or drop emotionally suggestive comments. The goal isn't to rekindle love, it's to keep you emotionally activated, just in case they need a fallback. This leaves you feeling uncertain, wondering, do they still care? Is this a second chance? But the reality is much colder. It's a power tactic. Keeping you emotionally nearby feeds their ego. It reassures them that they are never truly alone, that someone is always within reach. Psychologists call this breadcrumbing, when someone scatters just enough emotional crumbs to keep you from walking away entirely, but never enough to truly reconnect. And if you don't recognize it early, you risk living in a suspended emotional state, waiting for something that will never fully arrive.